Merry Christmas everyone, welcome back warrior students. So today I would like to talk with you about a question that I hear and that I read basically all the time, and this is not a big of a surprise because it's a very good question, and this question is: when do I want to pop my damage cities? So when do I want to pop my damage cities is a question that depends on a billion different things that will be different for basically every player. And therefore the answer to this question will be a different one for basically every one of you. A slightly different one in a lot of cases at least. So if you are not able to answer the question for yourself, and if you're not able to adapt to change because you missed the knowledge on why things are the way they are, you're not really able to get a lot of value or to get the maximum value out of your damage cities in at least some situations. And therefore we are going to do this video today to teach you guys, or I try to teach you guys as much as I can about this topic. So first of all, we are going to look at why is this question so important, especially for warriors, and then we are going to look at a beautiful piece of art that I did to explain to you like kinda what it takes to make the decision, and then we are going to look at an example boss that I made up, and we are going to try and find out together more or less when do we want to pop our CDs on this particular encounter. At the end of the video I'm going to draw a conclusion and maybe give you some tips. So if you're not super invested into video games or you're a warrior in general, you can just skip ahead to the end of the video, but however you will miss a lot of important informations on the way, maybe. Okay, so why is the question more important to answer correctly on a warrior than on the most other classes? This is because your damage cooldowns are simply very strong, so your class is balanced around strong DPS cooldowns, and if you miss the chance to get a lot of value out of those, you are obviously in a disadvantage. So why is the question a little bit harder to answer on a warrior as well? This is because you almost always have at least two different phases of DPS in a boss fight, which is execute phase and normal DPS phase. Then you have the unique mechanic of your resource. So yeah, you get more resource if you take damage, so this can be factored into your decision making as well, that other classes don't really have to worry about. And then you have the fact that your DPS cooldowns are very strong and you're a melee class and you have no threat reduction, so even if the correct answer to when to use your damage cooldowns is maybe at the start of a fight or when ads come in, maybe you still can't do it because you would pull too much threat and die. Alright guys, so let's take a look at this beautiful piece of art that I have created to basically display what is going on in my brain when I try to figure out when do I want to pop my damage cities. And yeah, let me first explain. So on the right side we have the damage CD value in the golden star, which is basically our goal. So obviously if we think about do I want to pop a damage cooldown here, we think about how much value do I get, and most of the time it's like a decision between do I want to delay my damage cooldown here to get more value out of it later, and then obviously the thought process is how much value do I lose when I delay it here and how much value do I gain when I pop it later. So I have here made two major categories of factors that are present most of the time, and this is like red and counter mechanics, like uptime, invus. Here I know it says unvus, but it means invus, so invulnerabilities, so boss is taking no damage. Vus, which is short for vulnerabilities, so the boss takes more damage. Ad waves, walls, execute phase, rage events, burn phases, and things like this. We have damage increases, crit increases, haste increases, attack power increases, and yeah, all of those things can add or subtract a different value to your damage cooldown. Like if you want to pop a crit cooldown, maybe you get more value because you pop it in an ad wave, right? But the value of those things that you can get or lose sometimes are not really fixed, because it can depend, and it depends on your skill in this case. For example, if you are very bad at playing execute phase, you will obviously not get as much value if you pop a cooldown here. Like if you delay a cooldown to get more value in execute phase, but you deal actually less damage in execute phase than you deal normally because you play it very wrong and you didn't even notice, then yeah, you decrease the value of your cooldown even further. So you first decrease the value by saving it for execute phase, and then you decrease the value even further because in execute phase then you actually did less damage than with your normal rotation. Example would be in some cases spamming execute. So for example, at the start of Burning Crusade I didn't really know what I want to do with execute phase because it kind of felt wrong to spam it, but I was kind of used to it. And therefore I try to avoid popping cooldowns in execute phase, and yeah, things like this. So you may wonder why those things are sometimes connected to the middle part of the skill diamond, where we have a little star with even some highlights going on. Look at this, beautiful. And some of those things are connected like with the outskirts, so with the top and the bottom. So if things are connected with the diamond, like with the star part here of the skill diamond, for me this means that skill can change the value of the factor here a lot. For example, if you save a cooldown for Bloodlust, but you are very bad with handling large amounts of haste, you will get much less value than someone who is very skilled with this, right? So this makes sense, I think. Then we have things that are connected to the top and the bottom, and this means that skill has less impact on those factors, and sometimes even no impact. Let's say for example you already decided that you want to pop a cooldown into an invulnerability phase. Maybe it was on accident because you didn't know the fight and you thought, yeah, let's pop my cooldowns, they are back up, and then the boss all of a sudden gets a divine shield. Then you can't really, at this point you can't really change anything with your skills, because if the boss takes 0 damage, doesn't matter how good your rotation is, there will be no benefit, or no further decrease of your already lost value on the DPS cooldown. So this is kind of the things that I thought about when I created this thing. And I only want to talk briefly about this because this would take too long, and like I said, we are going to do an example next on a boss fight that I made up, so that we can kind of figure out together how we want to use our cooldowns, and then at the end I will summarize the things that we kind of learned and give you some tips, so we don't need to go too deeply into this graphics here. But one thing I wanted to point out here, and this is, like I said, all those things have different values, and the values even change with the skill level. So for example, rage events can add a lot of value, add waves can add a lot of value, for example more than double the value even. And then we have the other cooldowns like damage increases, crit increases, haste increases, and attack power increases. So you don't want to delay an attack power increase for another attack power increase. So you don't want to delay a Bloodlust Brooch only for the sake of using it together with your Orc Racial. If this is the only reasoning why you're delaying your Bloodlust Brooch, it's not a DPS increase, so don't do this. Then we have haste increases delayed for haste increases only. Again, not a good idea. You don't need to do that. You don't need to delay a haste potion for Bloodlust if Bloodlust is the only reason. Like if Bloodlust gets popped into the boss vulnerability phase or into an add phase, then you could delay your haste potion, because you don't really delay it for Bloodlust, you delay it for the add wave or the vulnerability phase. Then you don't want to delay crit increases only for the sake of popping it with another crit increase together. Here I mean crit chances increase, especially you don't want to delay recklessness for another crit increase, because recklessness already gives you 100%. And on damage increase it's a little bit different. You can delay a damage increase for a damage increase. For example, let's say the boss takes increased damage, percentage increased damage, you can save Death Wish for this, and you will increase the value of your Death Wish. So this is a little bit special. So I think this is everything about this about this piece of art, and now we are going to talk about the hallucinated boss fight. Alright, so I made up this boss fight to show you guys what it takes to make the right decision on when you want to pop your cooldowns in a boss fight. And yeah, so it's the 24th of December, so it's Christmas Eve, and you want to go raiding with the boys, with your guild. But first you need to get attuned, and your guild needs to help you with the attunement because you have to actually defeat a boss for the attunement, a raid boss. And this raid boss is your mom, because your mom says that you're not allowed to raid on the Christmas Eve, and therefore what's that? We are not 16 anymore. Oh yes, I forgot. So actually, excuse me, the raid boss is not your mom. It's actually your girlfriend. So this one will be a lot harder. However, I think we can still manage to defeat it, so we can go raiding. So we will take a look at some informations like what is going on in the boss fight, and then we can decide when we want to pop our cooldown. So the first information that I can give you right now is that it's 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So right now you think it's okay, that's easy. I'm going to use Death Wish at the start and then in the last 30 seconds, which is as well execute phase, so seems kinda nice. However, most boss fights are not that easy, and this one is obviously no exception. So our boss here, Luisa, is going to cry after 1 minute of boss fight. So after 1 minute, Luisa is going to cry, and she's going to go into a vulnerable phase and an enraged phase at the same time. So she's going to take 100% more damage. This is the first information that we have. So what happens if you use Death Wish in a boss, or on a boss that takes, or on a target that takes 100% increased damage? Let's say you normally deal 1k DPS. If you pop Death Wish, you get 200 DPS on top, because then you deal 1200 DPS because of Death Wish in this time. So your Death Wish value is like plus 200 DPS. Not over the whole fight, but in this situation when you have Death Wish active. And then you pop it on a target that takes double the damage. So let's see, you deal 1000 DPS normally, so the boss takes double the damage, so you deal 2000 DPS, and then you pop Death Wish, which is plus 20 DPS, plus 20% DPS, and then you deal all of a sudden 2400 DPS, so you get a DPS increase of 400 from your Death Wish. So the value of your Death Wish got doubled, because the damage that the boss is taken gets doubled as well. However, if you need to delay your Death Wish for an entire minute, you are only going to use, or you are only able to use one Death Wish in the boss fight. So it doesn't really matter if you pop it on the 100% phase or 2 times in the boss fight, because if you pop it 2 times, you get 2 uses out of Death Wish, so you're getting 2 times 200 DPS, or you pop it in the vulnerability phase or in the enrage phase, so you get 400 DPS for this, so the value is doubled, so it doesn't really matter. However, there's more to this, because your guild decides that this will be the time when you want to burst the boss down as much as possible, because yeah, it's 100% increased damage taken. So you're going to use Bloodlust, and because you're using Bloodlust and you're using like drums and everything, you're going to attack a lot faster, so therefore you're going to increase the value of your Death Wish even more, because first it takes double the damage, then you attack a lot faster, so your DPS gets actually a lot higher again. Let's say you deal all of a sudden, you deal 3000 DPS, so if you pop your Death Wish right now, you're getting 3600 DPS, which is yeah 600 DPS for your Death Wish, and this will mean that it's like triple the value, which is very good. But here's the catch. So Luisa is only going to cry for 15 seconds. This is the first thing that you have to consider. So it's only half the duration of your Death Wish, where you get the 100% damage increase, and then Luisa is going to deal 100% more damage while she's crying, so she needs to be kited around the room. And if you deal so much more damage and the tank is only kiting the boss, you're kinda likely to pull threat. And if you pull threat on your crying girlfriend, yeah, you're pretty much done so at this point. So you have to hold back here. You can't really take advantage of the full 100% increased damage taken. You have to be a little gentle here. So maybe this isn't really the best time to pop all your cooldowns. At the same time, you know from yourself that you're not very good in like taking advantage of your crying boss, and at the same time you're not very good at like taking advantage from a lot of haste, because you haven't really exercised the rotation changes that occur when you get a lot of haste that often. So you know your rotation kinda sucks if you get a lot of haste, so maybe you don't want to pop your death wish actually here. So only this little enrage kiting phase wouldn't really be enough for a good boss fight, so there's actually more that will happen. So after 2 minutes she is going to summon 3 ads. So the first ad is Angry Dad, so she's going to summon her dad, and he's pretty angry, but luckily he can be taunted and will be tanked by your second tank. But she's going to summon 2 more ads, which is Hermann the hamster. This is your hamster, he's really cute, and your cutie kitty. So cutie kitty is as well really cute. So those ads are kinda scary, right? So she summoned her angry dad, your super cute Hermann hamster, and her cutie kitty. So things are getting a little bit scary here. However, if you are a good warrior, you're immune to cute things and you are immune to authorities. So therefore you're still able to cleave out a lot of damage here. And at the same time, he is going to be tanked by your second tank, she is going to be tanked by your main tank, and those two are going to be off tanked by your DPS because they don't really deal that much damage. So if you are good with cleaving, like I said, like doing a lot of cleave damage, you can deal like more than double the damage in this phase. And the ads are going to live more than 30 seconds, so you would get your entire death wish here. So you could use your entire death wish on the ads, and because you're good with cleaving, you're a good warrior player, you deal double the damage here because you know how to do it. At the same time, if you don't pop your cooldowns here, your Fury Warrior bro will actually pull threat on Cutie Kitty and Hermann, and they will attack him and not you. But you want them to attack you, because then you get all the rage from this. Like I said, you will not die, because the healers can heal you through this, and so if you use cooldowns here, you pull threat on Hermann and Cutie Kitty, and therefore you get more rage, and therefore your cooldowns get even more value. And at the same time, if we look at the time, we can use, like if we look at the boss fight length, we can use our 2-minute cooldowns at the start, and then we can use our 2-minute cooldowns together with Death Wish for the ads and together with Recklessness. So we will get a lot of value here in the ad phase, a lot more actually than in the 100% invulnerability phase, because we are better in cleaving than taking advantage of our crying girlfriend, and we are also dealing twice as much damage, and we are as well able to use our 2-minute cooldowns twice in a fight, and we don't need to hold back because we are not going to pull aggro here. So this encounter has no execute phase, so we don't really have to worry about this for this encounter, because after 3 minutes, or when she reaches 20%, she's going to go into a state of denial where she is basically immune to all the actions that you or your raid can do to her, and after the 30 seconds she's just going to leave the arena and let you raid. Unfortunately, she's never coming back, but at least we can raid on the Christmas Eve. Welcome back to the people that have skipped ahead to this point. Unfortunately, you still have to look at the Frankensteins Monster I created with the help of Photoshop and Paint. Alright, let's summarize things up. So fortunately there are two major damage events that happens almost all boss encounters, and this is first of all Recklessness, and the second one is Bloodlust. Recklessness you have control over and is your biggest damage CD, and Bloodlust is your second best damage CD and you have no control over this one. So most of the time you just want to press your Recklessness together with when your guild decides or your great group decides to use Bloodlust. And because you get so much value out of Recklessness and Bloodlust, like your damage is going to be very insane, you can just safely delay your death wish and your other damage increases for this phase. Then obviously you want to know about other damage events that are happening in the boss fight, for example add waves, execute phase, rage events, or vulnerabilities. Sometimes you need to factor in your skill, like we talked about before, like how much damage increases an add wave for me, how much damage increases an execute phase for me, and then obviously you want to know the fight length before the fight starts, so you know that when you want to pop your other cooldowns other than Recklessness, because like I said, Recklessness wants to be popped together with Bloodlust and then you want to use anything else together with this. But sometimes knowing the fight length before is very helpful to decide when you want to use Death Wish or attack power increases or 2-minute cooldowns in general. So a good example would be 3-minute boss fight. After 2 minutes your guild will pop Bloodlust, so this means you use 2-minute cooldowns at the start. You use 2-minute cooldowns together with Bloodlust, Recklessness and Death Wish, so no Death Wish at the start here. This would be one very easy example. How you get to know the fight length before the fight is happening? Well, this is only really possible if you're raiding with the same group basically every week, and then you can look up in the logs and see how long are the boss fights in general, and then most likely this doesn't really change a lot between the different raid IDs, so yeah, you can do that. Then always before the boss fight ask when your group wants to use lust. Yeah, like you can ask the shaman in your group or like the raid lead. And then if you go into a boss fight blind, completely blind, like you don't know when Bloodlust is getting popped, or maybe you don't have Bloodlust, you like basically LFR scenario, you just pop everything at the start, because this maximizes the chances that you can use the abilities more often in the fight. And at the start of the fight all your ICDs, so internal cooldowns, are ready, so your trinkets are going to proc relatively shortly into the boss fight, and other things like weapon enchants and stuff like this. So these are two major advantages of popping your shit right at the start of a fight. And then you want to go from there, because after a certain time in the boss fight sometimes you can tell how long the fight will basically last. So one example, use Death Wish at the start. After 3 minutes the boss has 55% HP, then you know that you are most likely get another Death Wish in at the end of the fight. This is something, and you always want to look out for the boss HP, the current HP, and how much time has passed, and then you can kind of figure out while the fight is happening how much time you have left on the boss fight. And then obviously you want to know about your weaknesses and the weaknesses of your group. So when adds come in, can you trust your tank that he is going to pick them up relatively fast and that he's going to build up threat relatively fast, or do you need like forever to DPS them? So yeah, things like this. You want to know about the strengths of your group and your own strengths, like are you good in execute phase, things like this. So this is like the very short summarized version of what we learned in the video. If you skipped ahead to this point and now you don't really feel satisfied, just watch the whole video. I hope this was very informative again, and we will see each other in the next one. Until then, stay tuned, take care, and Merry Christmas everyone. La, 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 la.